Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Terrorism and the Tea Party, that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. In a very coordinated effort, the far left in America is once again trying to marginalize the Tea Party in the eyes of non-ideological Americans, which is most of the voting public. You may remember that the radical left tried to brand the Tea Party racist, but that attempt failed, as the election last November demonstrated. Now the uber-left legions are at it again, equating the Tea Party's staunch opposition to a debt compromise with terrorism.
It's like a form of economic terrorism. I imagine these Tea Party guys are like strapped with dynamite, standing in the middle of Times Square at rush hour and saying either you do it my way or we're going to blow you up, ourselves up, and the whole country up with us. So you tell me how those kinds of standoffs end.
Once having been successful at blindfolding the American public, putting a gun to the president's head, forcing him to read into law or to sign into law this extraordinary act of, I think, unpatriotic and irrational frenzy, I think that now they're emboldened.
Any faction in America that would put a gun to the head of 310 million people and say, if you don't do it our way, we will blow your dreams away. We will blow a hole in the American economy. That is un-American.
Now notice the nearly identical language used by those three individuals. There is no question that the designers of far-left propaganda are very well coordinated. Another example. In a New York Times column today, Joe Nocera writes, quote, "The country has watched in horror as the Tea Party Republicans have waged jihad on the American people. Their intransigent demands for deep spending cuts, coupled with their almost gleeful willingness to destroy one of America's most invaluable assets, its full faith and credit, were incredibly irresponsible." Jihad? As Bernie Goldberg astutely pointed out last night, many on the far left refuse to even mention jihad when real Muslim terrorists strike. But now, the terrorist label is all over the Tea Party. That is wrong. As you may know, I disagreed with the Tea Party on occasion. Some BillO'Reilly.com premium members even canceled their memberships because I said Michelle Bachmann and other politicians were being too rigid on the debt deal. That although their cause is just, controlling government spending, their methods were causing harm both to them and to you. But branding Congresswoman Bachmann a terrorist is disgraceful. Are far-left politicians like Senators Bernie Sanders and Tom Harkin terrorists as well? They voted against the debt deal. Hey, far-left fanatics, is there a difference when your side refuses to compromise? Apparently there is. The bitter political divide in the USA is disturbing. Using words like terrorist and racist to brand opponents is simply unacceptable. I think maybe President Obama needs to give another speech like his Arizona appeal. Some of his most ardent supporters obviously did not get the message. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction. Joining us from Washington, Fox News political analyst Charles Krauthammer, who himself has criticized the Tea Party but did not call them terrorists. Now the coordinated anti-Tea Party effort is interesting here, Charles, is it not?
Well, it certainly is the spitting and the sputtering of people who are been deeply defeated. I mean, they were routed. Here they were up against a small minority of one House of 1/3 of the Congress, and they lost everything. They got routed. Look, this was their Agincourt, you know, Henry V, outnumbered by the French 3-1. The opposition, the liberals, hold the Senate. They hold the White House. They hold the media, which had been leaking and parroting the White House line all the way through, and they still got defeated. I think this is sort of a pathetic response. If you have no arguments, what do? Ad hominems. You attack, you throw names out. But I have one slight disagreement with you about it being a conspiracy. I don't think these people have the wherewithal to orchestrate a 3-car motorcade.
But here's what happens.
Well,
let me give you some information.
The reason for the repetition is lack of intelligence and lack of originality.
Okay, but
these
here's
are people who are slothful.
Here's what we're hearing, and it happens on the Republican side too, by the way, but here's what we're hearing. There are a list of media people, pundits primarily, but some straight people as well, some so-called reporters, who are on mailing lists of radical left websites. So they get blasts, they get talking points. And it happens on the right too. Okay, so every morning, they get a little ding on their BlackBerry, ding, ding. And here's the phraseology that's being used. They read it and they spit it back. That's happening, Charles. That's coordination.
Look, what it means to me is you've got people with no intelligence, no originality, no imagination. They are sputtering. They've lost. They have no arguments. What do? They want ad hominems. They want epithets. So somebody uses it on the air. Aha, well, that's a good one. I'll use it. I don't credit them with the intelligence or the sort of what it takes to put together a conspiracy. I'm not sure that's an important point here. The effect is they all end up saying the same thing. It's
okay, but here's why I think
wire.
it's important. When you repeat a lie often enough, in some people's minds, it becomes the truth. That's the rule number one of every propagandist who's ever operated. Repeat the lie. Mantra, mantra, mantra. Now, they tried it with the racist deal. You know they did. They tried to brand the Tea Party people racist. Didn't work. Now, they're saying they're economic terrorists. They want to blow the country up.
But as you just said, Bill, you just said earlier, if you repeat the lie often enough, it'll work. Well, you just said with racism, it didn't work.
Because there was enough counter
this is
to
not
that,
gonna, well, this is so transparently silly. You actually had one congressman, I wrote it down, Mike Doyle, in the meeting with the vice president yesterday, actually said, we've negotiated with terrorists. This small group of terrorists has made it impossible for us to spend any money. Well, that's a hell of a definition of terrorism. Normally, a terrorist says, I want you to convert. I want your daughter. I want your money. I want your submission. This guy says a bunch of terrorists in Congress have stopped us from spending money we don't have. You think that's an argument that will carry with the American people?
No, and that's why I don't think it was the Tea Party who got this done. I think it was the American people. Now, I think the Tea Party drove the debate and set the debate up, to their credit, because I think most Americans understand we're wildly in debt and it's going to harm everybody. But I think it was the folks, Charles, that said, you know what, $14.5 trillion, not okay with us anymore. Unemployment at more than 9%, not okay. I think that's what happened here. I'll give it a last word.
I'm not sure there's a big difference, because in a democracy, the folks speak. How do they speak on Election Day? What's the result? They elect representatives who speak on their behalf, and those representatives in the House, some of them a rather small minority, prevailed over a majority. Why? Because they have conviction, and they have the argument, and they have reality and truth on their side. This country is headed over a cliff economically. Everybody understands that, including the ratings agencies, which are rather neutral on this. They're objective observers, and they say, you don't get your house in order, we're going to make you lose your AAA. Everybody understands that, but it was these people expressed through their representatives who made the case and won the day.
All right, Charles, thanks very much. And here